Over the next few decades, the Metaverse will become immensely more advanced and integrated in our daily lives. Some people think the Metaverse is just a hype. Others believe it to be the greatest evolution of the internet. Together with the sharpest minds in this space, we are going to explore the future of the Metaverse. We want to understand the impacts of this new world, and in this show, we will find the answers. Welcome to Metaverse Mentors.
Today, I'm joined by someone with endless energy and enormous passion for technology, and I think calling him a veteran in the gaming landscape is not out of place. Today's guest is my neighbor from the south, Sven van der Perre. Sven van der Perre is the co-founder and creative director of Tropos AR. At Tropos AR, they are integrating very cool forms of gamification into our daily lives. They do this in shapes and forms that we haven't experienced or imagined before. Tropos AR is currently helping leading organizations with the world of sports, broadcasting, physical retail to help them claim their space in the Metaverse. Welcome at Metaverse Mentor. Sven, thank you for joining me today.
Good morning, Sam. Yeah, no problem. Looking forward to this.
Me as well. Really looking forward to your story. Before we start chatting about Tropos AR, your relation with the Metaverse, I'm really curious what your journey has been towards this path, towards the Metaverse. Can you maybe give us a quick rundown on what your journey has been in this field and how you arrived at where you are now?
Oh, okay. I've been a tech geek all my life. Like, been building computers since I was 13. Was one of the very early members at the first PC video game magazine in Belgium and Netherlands. One of the first people within Larian Studios, one of the biggest Belgian developers right now. Moved to PlayStation Magazine from there on. I've been editor-in-chief of official PlayStation Magazine for, I think, a bit over 8 years. Did a TV show about games. Bought an iPhone, started it at an open app store. Founded the first mobile game development company in Belgium. And a year or 6 ago, moved to being a tech consultant, looking into what was then new VR and AR. And have been building behind the scenes what is now being called the Metaverse for over, I think, almost 5 years now, and we've stepped into the limelight about a year ago.
Thank you for that background. It sounds like you've really done a wide variety of cool stuff in and outside technology and the gaming industry. What are the biggest changes that you have seen over the year when it comes to technology and gaming?
Over the year?
Over the years, since you're...
Oh, over the years. Okay. It has basically done what my dad has said it would never do. Like, when I was young and I was always playing video games, my dad always said, "Man, you should stop playing video games and get serious." And I was like, no, let's keep on playing video games. So I think it's more or less a natural evolution, being that playing is something which is at the core of every human. So that we end up building technology in a way that facilitates that is, to me, I think it's only natural. And I for one, am very happy that more and more game mechanics find their way into different industries. Although there are some drawbacks as well, which we'll probably get into later today in this podcast. So like, it has been going from, well, I started with an Atari, and I now, like, if you now know what the coolest stuff is, like the coolest VR stuff is like Half-Life Alyx and all that, and especially now what's coming with augmented reality for everybody, not just for the gamers. It's an exciting time, I guess, and it's slowly getting started. That's the crazy thing. Like, the evolution, the last, how long? I'm 45, so I've been playing games a bit over 30 years now. The next 10 years will be a much bigger step than the last 35 years. So if you think your PlayStation 5 is crazy compared to your Atari, you don't want to know what's going to be there in 10 years.
I think I really want to know, and it really sounds game-changing as well. And I want to dive into the relationship and the interlinking with AR. But before we do that, I really want to zoom out completely first into more overarching view on Web 3.0, because how do you see Web 3.0 and what's your interpretation of Web 3.0, this overarching concept?
Oh, it's if you want to explain technology, what we do, we always start with like the big picture. If you look at the internet basically moves in big phases. Phase one was everybody had a website, and every company had a website, and every consumer had a browser. You were basically free to do whatever you want, whenever you want. You could visit any website at any moment, and any company could communicate in whatever was feasible within the boundaries of technology then, could choose how they communicated to the client. And in the second phase, what we did is we gave up all that freedom for the sake of convenience. Businesses as well as consumers. We all moved to social media because we thought, hey, it's free, it's open, it's there, and it's fun, so why not just do it? Basically killing all normal websites, which have become pretty static by now, or well, most of them have, and which in the end the algorithms came in and social media started controlling who we talk to, who sees what. That second phase of the internet is now more or less coming to an end. Like the third phase of the internet right now, which is then called Web 3 or the spatial web or the metaverse, it's all the same thing, is where we again have the chance to make those decisions, but for a new medium, meaning then augmented reality, which we will get into a bit later. But people really have to understand those big phases, and at the start of every new phase, the cards get like shuffled and redealt, so that there's a very big change coming to us. Like what the web was built on up until now, HTTP and HTTPS is no longer what is needed, or like we're basically driving super fast sports cars on very old roads. And right now there's a lot of companies and a lot of open organizations building new protocols to facilitate Web3, which are so much more data driven and so much more interconnected and so much more open protocols again, which will allow a lot more freedom. That is the Web3 future, which is coming very soon.
So this decentralization and convergence of AR and VR, it sounds really new, but actually I read some articles. It is not really new. It was they were already preparing these technologies in end 90s and maybe a bit earlier. What has led? What are the mechanics that have led that Web3 is sounding to become more ubiquitous and pervasive this year and last year? What are the mechanics that have led to that?
There's an easy comparison. If you go back in time, the internet was there a long time before it got big, and one of the great insights our team had was what made the internet explode is the invention of the web browser. Before web browsers, like the internet was there, but people were missing that one handy tool to just access it and use it in an easy way. That's the same thing for Web3. There's a few technologies which still need to be implemented before everybody can move on from the second generation, the second phase of the internet, to the third generation. So every time people ask me like can you like tell me what the metaverse is or what Web3 is, the first thing I always say is like I can tell you what I think it will be. Because everybody that says like the metaverse is this or that,
no one can look in the future.
Oh yeah, they're basically. Well, I know that people don't like to be like don't like to live in uncertainty, or at least most people. So to us, what the metaverse will be is when physical and digital come together, meaning when every physical business has so much digital stuff, so that it's like basically indistinguishable from digital businesses which will also be pushed into having physical stuff. Those two, when that comes together, the physical and the digital that become one, that to us is the metaverse, or will be the metaverse. So that is going to be driven by one new type of technology, which is kind of the outer visual layer. So, and that technology is augmented reality. You see right now, the people from Facebook, they're building their own glasses. Google is building their glasses. Apple is building their glasses. You have Snapchat in there. You have a lot of other companies. They're all moving towards the next big technology platform, which is no longer your phone, but AR glasses and AR lenses, by the way. But let's not discuss that right now. That layer will allow you to put digital content anywhere within the physical world, meaning that you can build a bridge between the physical and the digital, so that your bakery doesn't have to be like a fully physical space anymore, or have only physical stuff. He can have digital stuff as well, because it will just be there. It will be in his shop, going from live sports to entertainment to like at home. That new layer, augmented reality, is truly a new medium. If you look at society, we've always looked for like the best way to communicate on a mass scale. That went from the printing press to then the radio, which we've invented, the television, which we've invented. After that came the internet, which is kind of like a combination of TV, radio, and the printing press together, but a lot more interactive. The new medium is augmented reality, meaning no longer all that content on those few flat screens we have. Like if you count them all up, they're about 1 meter square. Well, if you have a very big TV, you might end up with 2 meters square. But augmented reality goes from 2 meter flat square to every cubic meter in the world, meaning as big as an airplane floating above a football stadium, or like as small as a mouse on your desk. You can basically add any piece of digital content in 3D anywhere in the environment. You only need like a lens to see it. Right now, everybody has such a lens. You have your phone. It's a bit clumsy to pick it up and to look at stuff, but we're using our phones a lot already. And if Pokemon Go taught us anything, if you have a good use case, then people will do it. But with AR glasses, and that's why there's this big technology war going on, there's big talent war going on between Apple and Google and all the rest. They know AR glasses is going to change a lot for a lot of people. So yeah, to us, that is what the metaverse will be, coming together of the digital and the
When
physical.
do you think that I can remove my TV at home here completely? When will we reach that point?
5 years.
Okay, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because in episode 1, Dr. Mark Verreinem also mentioned that AR will become far more important than VR, and he explained that briefly, and I think I can agree and imagine that to a certain extent. Simultaneously, I also see incredible and endless innovation and imagination in my VR goggles. Why do you think, Sven, personally, that AR will become more pervasive and important in the metaverse than VR?
Because the real world is still more fun than the virtual world. Like you can, just like going to you can look at VR as going to the cinema, or being like completely involved in a certain type of entertainment, which is kind of like sitting on behind your TV is kind of the same thing, but it is so much smaller than what can be done with augmented reality, because like I said, every cubic meter of air within this world, and I can like walk down the street with my kids. My kids will have probably better looking AR glasses than mine, and they will see the normal world with content on top of it that they like, and I will see the normal world with content on top of it which other people like. I don't want to diss on VR, because I think it's an amazing technology, and I have more VR goggles here than I have heads. A lot more than my girlfriend really doesn't. She always, like, every time she has to move on, she's like, yeah, like, we need to get rid of some of these. And she's, well, maybe right. So I'm a big fan of VR, but it can be used for so many things, for entertainment, for education, for training, for all that. But nobody's going to be in VR all day or even longer than 1 hour, I guess. Well, if the game is very good, I've been there longer than 1 hour. But AR is going to be something which you basically do from morning till evening. It's just going to be there. There's no distinction between. We're doing a lot of my home is filled with AR because I have a LiDAR model. Actually the software building has a LiDAR model of my house. So there's a lot of AR stuff here already. And it's normal to me. And even if I show it, or if I'm testing something, if my kids see it, then I had this experience. We were testing with a digital trophy cabinet, which is downstairs in my in one of my walls, and I was testing it, and my kid was he was watching cartoons. He was looking over my shoulder, and when I put him to bed at night, he told me Dad, the thing you had in the evening, can I have the same thing in my room? I have an empty wall there. I want the same thing that you have downstairs. Which is, my kid is 5. What he sees, he thinks it's totally normal. He's you have stuff like that with all the photographs and the cups and the medals and all that. I have an empty wall. Give me one. It's going to be that.
Just
normal
to clarify for the listeners, how did you view those trophies? Was this through your phone, to the lens of your phone?
Yeah, through my phone. Yeah, the phone recognizes whatever it looks at. I can open up my phone, I can look to any corner, just because that corner has some unique features. It knows oh, I'm looking at this corner of this house because it has your geolocation as well as the full model of your house through LiDAR technology. So it knows okay, behind me is the art stuff, and there's there's the gamification stuff, and outside there are the NFTs and all that. So yeah, that's the world we're moving.
I heard you mention already a few times a LiDAR technology. Is that the central technology or program that's at heart or the fundament for creating these AR, or how should I see that?
Apple uses LiDAR, and Google uses time of flight. It's basically just a technology which allows your camera or a sensor right next to your camera to turn what it sees into an accurate 3D model. Which is, up until LiDAR and time of flight came around, we could show our phone pictures, but not 3D. And with those two technologies, we've basically given it eyesight. And that's a big jump.
I see. Very interesting. And of course, you're doing a lot with AR at Tropos AR, which we will get into soon. But for the technologists and maybe students who are listening, we have spoken briefly about VR and AR. Are there underlying technologies, and maybe a segue to jobs as well? Are they similar? Are they related, or are the required skills to become an AR developer, for example, completely detached from what you do as a VR developer? Could you maybe talk briefly about that?
Content creation, there's at least a lot of overlap. Technology-wise, well, you will be able to do. It's kind of different, but also kind of not. It's all going to run on a few big platforms. We use Unity because those guys are most advanced when it comes to augmented reality, but there will certainly be a few others there as well. But yeah, job-wise, if you're into either one of those, you're going to have a pretty easy time finding a job. But especially what people right now don't understand is that the impact of the digital content in that physical world, it's going to completely change. We see augmented reality and digital content in the physical world changing the dynamics of the internet, meaning that instead of everybody having a small screen, but being interconnected to the whole of the world at the same time, which is basically a lot of streaming, especially if you open up your Twitter account, it's going to be a lot more local again, which we think is healthier, because I'm guessing the world was a bit more calm when we were all just like when we knew everybody in our town and everybody knew us, and you kind of had this like this balance, and it wasn't too crowded. With social media, the world became one, but with it came all the downsides, meaning also all that, like everybody could compete with everybody, which certainly wasn't a healthy thing. Everybody could talk to the rest of the world, and they always did, which, well, the opportunity should be there, but maybe it should be a bit more balanced. So that thing is going to change a lot.
You said, I like that. You said it's becoming more healthy compared to what we are seeing now. At the same time, if we look at like the typical mechanics on Web 2.0, the workflow is basically as follows. We type something into the search bar, then some information appears, we make a purchase decision, or we find some information. And simultaneously, we also see that the big companies, retailers, advertisers have become really sophisticated in hyper-targeting what we like as a consumer. Don't you think in the metaverse this can be only 10x or 100x be personalized if you have an AR avatar, for example, who knows what you're thinking, who can read your facial expressions, can appear in a form or a shape that I personally like, and can express with AI stuff that I perfectly want to hear. Maybe it's a utopical thinking that I am putting out here, but what is your view on this stuff?
I wouldn't call that utopia. I would call that dystopia. But like before I get into that, one thing I do want to emphasize is there's another big change coming within the world of economics, which has to do with what you just mentioned, because your search bar is driven by ads, because Google doesn't show you, like if you search for the best restaurant in your city, it's going to show you the best restaurant in a combination of the guys who advertise the most. It's not an independent opinion. Google is a business, and they run on advertisement. With NFTs, I'm guessing your users or your readers are going to, or your listeners are going to know what NFTs are. It's a blockchain technology which allows a piece of digital content to be unique. And I know you have like this monkey on your
this
wall
one is
there.
definitely cheaper than the one on OpenSea. That's what I can tell you, Sven.
Yeah, well, so the thing is, those are just a precursor to what is going to be able to, because I can right click on CryptoPunk's image and I can save it. But if you create AR content, which is 3D content, which grows and lives through an algorithm and which is somewhere in the world, you can take a video of it or a picture of it, but you cannot take the content itself because it's all encrypted, meaning that you can take a picture or a video of the Mona Lisa as well in the Louvre, but you cannot take the actual image. NFTs will allow us to create digital content which is unique, which will, up until now, the internet has basically been a commercial TV station. It gives you what you need as entertainment, but that's actually costing money. So what it does is, in between, it adds advertisements, banners, videos, all kinds of stuff to pay all the bills. With NFTs, we will be able to create a metaverse where the content has value, and where we don't have to interrupt that content with other types of business models. So there won't be an advertisement-driven business model in the internet of the future. There will just be stuff you want to see and you do see, but it will have its own cost and its own value. And if you want to see it, then somebody else can't see it, or they have to maybe be at the same location. So that big revolution, our team has been looking at that ever since CryptoKitties, which is now, is it 4
I think
years ago,
2017, already 5 or 4 years.
Yeah, so it's quite a long time ago, and we knew then, this is like one of the big underlying technologies which would change a lot, and which is one of the things which led us to eventually building Tropos AR.
So just to recap what you've just said, so what you're actually saying is, on a piece of data. Previously, it could be used for all sorts of business models to advertise and bombard us with personalized messages. And in the new world, there will be a layer of protection, encryption around it, which will not make it possible to do the same stuff, right?
Oh yeah. So to advance into what we do with Tropos AR, we truly believe that you as an individual, our consumer, has to have total ownership of his data, and doesn't have to be like just an entity to throw advertisements ads. If you say no ads for me, or if you want to show me ads, okay, but then I want something in return. Those are the models we kind of build. And before I go into that, what I always want to do is do know that Tropos AR has been built by standing on the shoulders of a lot of people. Years of listening to Tim Ferriss and reading books by Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman, Jeff Bezos. Like our whole team, we're all into that same large pool of data and information. So what we've built, we're standing on all those people's shoulders. Let's not forget that. But especially, what drove us to Tropos AR were we really know how the internet works on the algorithm-wise and on the economics-wise, which is a really important thing to, well, I'm guessing you know who Simon Sinek is. His start with why, if you want to know ROI, that's because we were very irritated by both the algorithms and the internet economics.
I definitely am a fan of Simon Sinek. That's why I'm trying to ask why as much as possible during this podcast as well. Can you maybe zoom out? You already briefly here and there explained on Tropos AR, but can we maybe begin? I know data sovereignty is super important, and I'm glad that that's a cause you are fighting for and helping society with. But can you maybe zoom out on what Tropos AR does, what the organization is, and what the objectives are, and how you hopefully are striving to improve our lives?
So Tropos AR was built for two reasons. I'm going to give you the underlying base, what made it rise. We know internet economics. So we know that right now, if you open up your phone, there's 200 apps on it. But if you see the amount of data, if you divide them up into who gets the amount of data going through it, there's 4 or 5 who basically dominate your whole phone. It's Meta's platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, and WhatsApp. You have Snapchat in there, you have YouTube, which is used a lot. But those few basically control everything. But what they also do, those algorithms, those advertisement algorithms, they have kind of created a world where everybody has to communicate through those channels, but you have to pay them to get onto the stage to have your moment in the behind the microphone. So, and they sell those places to the highest bidder. So you have a system where, the internet makes us grow as a business, but we can only grow if we take all our profits, move it to marketing, spend it online, grow even more. But the amount of money which is in that way goes from the whole of the economy towards those few big players is an insane amount. And we realized that, and we realized if you want to we have some other problems to fix in this world.
Can I step in there, Sven? Do you maybe have some numbers or statistics on the division on what, for example, Facebook takes versus what I take from putting something out there?
Not on top of my head, but they're easily to find on the internet. So when we saw that big difference, and we knew if you want to make a change, you need a lot of energy or money, same thing. You have to free that up. So that is one thing we really wanted to change with Tropos AR. The other thing is the way algorithms work. Every like button every type of like achievement you get, all those things, they're basically all dopamine triggers. That's because I spent so much time in the video game world. You truly start to understand that right now those dopamine triggers are being way overused, meaning the effort you have to do is really minimal, but you also get a small payoff every time. And if you make that loop very low, it moves from being something which is a motivator to something which is addiction. And it all goes all the way back to the first guys who really got a hold of that were the people who did Mafia Wars and was it Cafe World and Farmville on Facebook. That stuff was really addictive. It moved to the mobile world as well. We see that as something which is leading to so much mental health issues, where now that the internet is moving from those few flat screens out into the world, you really need different systems that allow you to do some gamification on balanced ethically. So those two things have led us to create what is now Tropos AR. Tropos AR is basically a web browser but for augmented reality. So any company can implement it into their app and can start communicating in augmented reality through their own app. Because what we want is, instead of, we will have our own app, but it will basically do the same thing as everybody who implements that SDK, because you implement the SDK into your phone, you add the extra button which opens up the camera. That camera sees whatever is in the AR cloud, not just the content that one client put in there, but also the content which other people have put in there. So let's say there's a Nike who implements it into their app and has in front of their main store in your country has this new model of a shoe, this big unveiling. If you look through the Nike app and you're in front of the store of Nike, you will see the shoe. But if you turn around and you walk into the bank, if the bank has put something in our AR cloud through the Nike app, they will see the stuff from the bank as well. Because we truly believe that if you look at it as a browser, when you look at the Nike shoe, the data which is then generated will go to Nike. But if you take that same window and then move it around and walk into the bank and you interact or look at whatever content your bank has put there, that data belongs to the bank together with you all the time. So we truly see Tropos AR as being a browser which is not this entity in between which controls the data and which takes you in as a user, but basically makes it very hard for you to leave, because our software is all built on open protocols. So you will be able to say, hey man, I don't like what you guys are doing. Let me take all my data, move out, and it's going to be in a very easy way so others can implement it. It's something which right now is already doable within. You can take all your data out of Google or out of Facebook, but it's done in a way that it's very hard to do, basically not really functional and not usable if you want to take it somewhere else. So that's what we really want to do different.
So what you're also saying is that this AR world is not siloed. So if in the example you just mentioned, you have the bank, you have Nike, and they have some NFTs there with some bunch of data, and they have that in the Nike store. Then we can all see that in the same time, and it's kind of a augmented reality search bar as opposed to now having the Google search bar. Is that what you're saying?
Without there having to be a search bar, because it's mostly going to be geolocated content or content which is triggered on top of some image or some marker or some other type of technology, or just by the location you're in. So instead of having a Google search bar, it's the same as having a billboard at the side of the road, which is physically real. There's going to be content which is just there, but it's only visible when you have an AR layer in between your eyeballs and the location.
So let's say we are here in the Metaverse Mentors Podcast studio, and I want to create 3 bored apes around me in the AR application or SDK that you guys at Tropos AR are putting available. Is that something that is possible that I can do as a creator, or do I need to have contact with Tropos AR and demand if that can be created, or what are the possibilities?
So, right now, our backend is not yet open, but soon it will be. And we've built an AR standard built on certain rules within Unity, allowing you. Unity is the biggest video game engine in the world and the best at AR as well. Any content provider which has some skills in Unity will be able to create its own content, to upload it into our client, kind of like YouTube doesn't make videos, but everybody can make a video and upload it to YouTube. Everybody's going to be able to make AR content and just add it to the AR cloud and to their account. So we truly believe in that. There's big companies that are going to do this for big brands, but there's small guys that do small websites or other digital content for your baker and your butcher. Those are going to be the same people that will be allowed to do stuff for
and what will be the entry level in terms of knowledge? As you accurately mentioned, you can put a video on YouTube without knowing how to program YouTube. I also don't know how this mic is being manufactured, but I can have a conversation here with you. Do I need to become do I need to have some program skills in order to play around in Unity, or is there also some level of plug and play, or will that come in the future, or how should I see this?
Basically, I'm guessing most programmers will start sighing if I say that Unity is still programming. It's really not. It's already like building blocks. You don't really have to have some degrees to start using it. There's a few tutorials out there that will teach you the basics. We will also have a lot of building blocks. We're working with a few different companies that build a lot of building blocks which you just can take off the shelf to create content. In the early years, there's going to be some more effort that has to be done from a content creator's end to create stuff. Just like right now, like we all have a device that does amazing video, but that wasn't the case years ago. You had to buy like a separate device which was a camcorder, and then you had to, if you want to edit it, then you had to like transfer it to a computer where you could edit it. Right now I can basically shoot a video on or like a movie on my phone, which does kind of everything. So we're not quite there yet, but because we're leaning on how old is Unity? I'm guessing almost 15 years old. That technology has advanced so far, and there's so much basic building blocks content, and it's so cheap, and I think there's over 1.5 million Unity developers out there in the world. There's tens, hundreds in every country, like small companies who do this. So it's really not that hard to create content. Next to even the building blocks we will have, which will basically be off-the-shelf stuff. So everybody, even your butcher, even if he doesn't have any skills, can start communicating stuff. Which kind of brings me to one part which I really want to emphasize. Like when we started testing what we're now about to deploy, we understood that if you really want to make this whole metaverse thing work, you're going to need some help on the other end of your lens.
What do you mean by on the other end of the lens?
Oh, so this is me. This is my phone. If I look through it, through that lens, on the other end of the lens, what's there? The AR cloud kind of needs a guide, and that's what we figured out. Like we threw everything at a lot of a big testing crowd, and once we started doing an entity which communicated, then we really saw a lot of more pickup, and we built it to, maybe we should give some companies like an avatar or something which talked to them. But then we started realizing if every company has like this digital entity, so there's going to be hundreds of them. So it's again going to be a very crowded space. So let's just let's call it a sidekick for you as an end user, an entity which you can decide how he or she or it looks. And so we started automating that. In the end, we turned it into something very realistic, but then we scaled it down again because we realized that users don't want to be outclassed by their sidekick. Like if you play a video game, your main character is always like the cooler character than the sidekick. It has like unique stuff, but like the main character is the main character for a reason. That's what we do as the same thing. So we have created this fully automated AR avatar, which is not you, but which is your best friend within the metaverse, and she will always have knowledge of the immediate metaverse around you, and you can just ask her, you can just start a dialogue with her. There's like a very easy way to do dialogue choices. She just starts talking to you. It's kind of like a Pixar character, but then with the face of a Lego movie technology. But for our clients, all they need to do is type in text. That text will be auto-generated in voice, which is nearly indistinguishable from real voice. They can choose whatever language or whatever, like young, old, or all that. They can just say, okay, like I want this, and that. The face is going to be automatically animated because we understand what is typed. If you type hi, like the character will hold up its hand, stuff like that. So that full module is a very easy way for everybody to just start communicating in AR. But for the end user, it will always be their same body or sidekick, which is there on the other end, which will, if you enter a museum, which will tell you, oh man, like you're coming in at the right time because there's this timed exposition, which is like it's the last week now, and there's some amazing stuff there. Like you're into NFTs, you can even buy one here from like this new, I don't know, there's this new Beeple NFT which is on the end of this museum, so you really need to like make it all the way to the end or stuff like that. She will always know what's going on around you.
What you've been saying already, multiple questions emerge, and I think you have the ability to answer multiple questions in one. So let me drop them at you. Question one is about the example that you're just gave about the museum. I think it's a really interesting use case, and I remember from the other episodes that interoperability was also a very important component into an ideal version of the metaverse. My question about that first is this information that this character or sidekick gives me about that museum in your specific instance, is that only about what's taken place and connected to the AR cloud, or will there be possibility to transfer that also about other worlds? And secondly, what I'm very interested in, you talked about the business models at Web2. What is the business model of Tropos AR? Where do you get your pennies from, and how do you get your bread?
First of all, the interoperability. If we do something in AR, you see the AR, but the amount of different technologies going on in the background, edge computing, cloud computing, IoT, all that, it's an interconnected web of almost all new technologies out there. So it's not just it's not just us, or like just the AR stuff. Like we use Tropos AR just because we want to be known as being like the guys from the outer layer. But basically, if you go and look behind the curtain, it's all the rest of the crew of the tech crew is also there. We truly believe in interoperability. That's why we're using all these open standards. And well, people are going to have to upload stuff into our AR clouds, and that AR cloud is not going to be, I'm guessing, open. It's not just a free for all, but just like you, there's now standards for videos, which is more for MP4 or something like that. It's the same thing. People can take their content and upload it into different types of services, which are not our service. We think that is very, very important. And as I said, every piece of content, the data gathered from that content, we keep for the client, but it's totally his. We call it principal ownership, meaning that brings you to your second question: how do we make money? There's a very, very tiny charge on if somebody sees something through our window. We make a very small amount of money, which is basically a view cost. But it's it's a view cost which is standard and which is not sold to the highest bidder, because we really like the sold to the highest bidder thing is really, to us, it's really dangerous. So our two business models are, whenever a piece of content is seen, we make some, we have to spend some money, because that content which is stored on a server we have to pay for is then pushed to the end user, to his device
Can you
instantly.
give an example on what kind of piece of content I would see, for example, as a consumer, which I would pay for?
Let's say you walk into that museum. There's your avatar which is outside of the museum, which welcomes you, which tells you, oh, like this is like a big museum, it has 4 wings, and like I know you, so you're probably going to want to see that wing or that wing first. Maybe she knows, because she's connected to you and she knows your agenda, maybe she knows you only have time for 2 wings. So she will then start debating you. She will tell you that you have this, and that. Like, I would think you might want to look into these 2, but maybe you want to do the other 2. So it's not really a stuff which kind of drives you to a certain location. And every time you walk into, like, let's say in every room, next to every piece, you can start talking to her. You can generate her there, and she will explain to you the information behind the piece of art you're looking at. Instead of having all these small panels which have not a lot of information, you can do a lot more with augmented reality. But every piece of content, everything which is pushed, depending on what type of content, carries with it a very, very small cost. Which kind of brings me to
Is
your
that the
question
cost,
to,
just to clarify, is that the cost for me as the user to have that data about that,
No.
or is that for the museum who pays to...
Yeah, it's the cost for the museum, because we basically help them in create a better user experience, where we add some gamification as well, still being in the realms of the ethical gamification part, because there's a reason why people play a lot of Fortnite, because it's basically so many layers of gamification on top of each other that it makes it unfair. And but if you add some gamification within normal physical markets, you can bring a lot of people that have basically given up on physical markets. You can bring them back into the physical world and make them do all kinds of physical stuff again, just because they get that little nudge here and there, and it all just becomes a bit more fun. And especially if they do, you can give them digital rewards, which we have this whole one side of our technology, which is your digital legacy, your digital trophy cabinets, as it were, where the more you do, you get, let's say you do 10 museums in a year. Well, I think if you do 10 in a year, you should get this like very big award. Maybe there's this digital artist who created a digital piece of art, which if you do 10 museums in a year, you have that in your backyard, which is only for people who do 10 museums in a year. That kind of stuff, which is rewarding people digitally, but through AR in something which is very close to being physical, is something which could really change a lot of the competition between digital types of entertainment and physical types of
This
entertainment.
really sounds incredibly transformative, and also maybe for people who weren't interested in going to the museum before, they might become interested now because of this interactivity. I have 2 add-on questions on what you just mentioned. One is this completely free for me as an end user? And secondly, you mentioned that you just take this really tiny percentage of each piece of data. So my follow-up question there would be, opposed to the traditional Web 2.0 models who take maybe a take rate of, I don't know, 60%, I'm just mentioning something, but I don't know, and you take a very tiny percent, how is that a viable business model?
You don't want to know how much money was made by selling your data, you as an end user. So if you ask me, how much will it cost me as the end user, I think you should get paid to do this. Right now, we're all using those 5 to 10 big services. They're selling all that data to other companies that then advertise. So we never got anything back, but you don't want to know how much money that is paid for like the data you help generate, and companies have to pay a lot. We truly believe in, if you move to a metaverse which is distributed and balanced, those big companies are going to lose all the profits they make. But if you take that profit and you give some back to the end consumer, let's say you have so one of the things which is not yet ready in our service, but is something we're building towards, is you can place a lot of content you get, like your physical rewards, in your living space. Because you do so and you play it, like I have like a trophy cabinet downstairs, I have like this big NFT hanging on my wall, and I have something in my backyard downstairs. Because I do that with LiDAR, because I've moved around enough with my camera, my device knows what my living room looks like, but it also knows the size of my TV, it also knows what my coffee maker is. Let's say, if we ask you, the end consumer, hey, if you allow us to anonymize, like make that piece of data about your living quarters, what's the word I'm looking for in English? Like, so that it's anonymous, meaning that like it's data, but it's not connected to you as a user. So whoever we give the data to won't be able to track you down personally, but we can then go up to Nespresso and say, hey, we have in the Netherlands, we have 1 million people that have so many square meters in their living spaces, that have that big a TV. There's like 4 people living there, so 2 adults and two small children, and they have a very old coffee maker. We can then have Nespresso say, okay, I want to do an advertisement campaign where we place like our new coffee maker right in their kitchen, like on top of the old one. So in AR you don't see the old one anymore, but we see the new one. And next to it is George Clooney explaining to your wife or girlfriend that she really needs to upgrade her coffee maker. If you would allow us to do that, we think you should be rewarded, and not be rewarded with some silly stuff which has no value, but truly in cash. Meaning that right now businesses are paying way too much to do online advertisements. Us as consumers, we get a fun environment, like Facebook and Instagram. They're still fun, but there's like driven very heavily to on the dopamine triggers, but we don't get any real value from it. We truly believe that Web3 can make a big impact on some other forms. If you stop those big companies from taking all the money, you can reward. Let's say if you're a very digital guy, and okay, you share some information about your living quarters, but you also share some information about other stuff you do. You maybe get your phone bill paid for every month, and get your Netflix for free every month. That's a big to a young family. That can be on a yearly basis, can be a pretty big amount of money. On the other hand, we truly believe that the fees we calculate, which are service costs, they are so much lower than the selling to the highest bidder, which Meta does and which Google does. That what we did, we partnered up with some companies within the Blue Future space. It's one of the companies is called Blue Future Organization, and they're building a worldwide net of seaweed farms. Seaweed is basically the best way to get carbon out of the air. Meaning, seaweed grows very fast, it eats up all carbon that is in the surface water, and it then sinks to the bottom. So those guys are building boats where they set out lines of seaweed in the ocean. Like 70% of our planet is ocean. There's plenty of space to do seaweed. That seaweed grows, takes carbon out of the air, and then sinks to the bottom, which is basically good for the bottom as well, because getting energy, which is like decomposing biomaterial, is very hard to do at the bottom. So our business model is going to be, whatever you do in our network is going to be not carbon neutral, but 25% carbon negative. So imagine if the internet were 25% carbon natural. How would we, like, if we're moving to this fully digital metaverse kind of stuff and doing a lot more digital stuff, we really have to bake in the environmental impact right into its core. And we can do that and even be a lot cheaper than what businesses have to pay for to reach an audience today.
I think that's a life-changing comment that you're, or a statement that you are putting out there, because there's a lot of people who are hostile against crypto, new technological innovations, precisely for that reason. But what you're actually stating is that's possible to not become carbon neutral, but carbon negative, and even becoming innovative, right?
Oh, yeah, and I don't like. I come from the crypto space, but I don't disagree with them on the energy. And there's a lot of initiatives being made, because most people in the Bitcoin world are people who want to tackle this as well. So Bitcoin eats up a lot of money, but Bitcoin is also being mined in places where a lot of energy gets generated, like in Iceland. There's a lot of like these hot water sources, so you can create a lot of electricity from them. But because electricity is very hard to transport electricity, the energy is being generated there, but nothing is being done by it. Like the same with volcanoes, the same with ocean movement and all that. So we have newer blockchains which are a lot more energy, like better at like the way they use energy. But we're not going to be like, humanity is not going to go back to living in a cave, but we really need to bake in the being carbon negative right down into our core. Because every time I hear some politician talk about like carbon neutral, if we do carbon neutral, we're fucked. It's basic science.
More interestingly, they don't only say it's going to become carbon neutral. They say we're gonna do it in 2030. It's like, I stop hitting my children when in 5 years. You have to quit it directly, right? It's quite weird.
On the other hand, I see that they have to do that, but they also have to keep the economy going. So it's a hard job, but right now some really good solutions are here, and we really like the seaweed thing is massive. It's kind of it's strange that it took us so long to figure it out, because all the carbon, all the oxygen we have in the air was basically put there by seaweed. 70% of the planet is 71% is ocean. There's a lot of free space in there. Seaweed it's very cheap to do. You can automate it. What the guys from Blue Future organization did, they turned it into an NFT. So every seaweed that gets put out is like a certain amount is put into one NFT, which you can then buy. Our clients will also get carbon certificates out of that. So when they put content into our system, it will calculate how much it costs to imagine the content. So the creative guys, we're going to take them into account. The guys who modeled it, we're going to take that into account. We're going to take into account the service it was stored on, as well as the end consumers who downloaded it. Like we want we will have an algorithm which calculates all that, places a carbon cost on it, adds the carbon cost onto it as an NFT token of that seaweed farm, and adds 25% in excess of that. So everybody, as well as businesses, as consumers, will know, hey, I did a lot of I went through my day and I did a lot of I consumed a lot of digital stuff, but they will be in their bed in the evening knowing we took whatever I did, it has a carbon negative impact of minus 25%.
Sounds like we can create some sort of digital circular economy. I'm very optimistic and interested about learning more. Maybe as we are nearing to the end, you briefly also spoke about dopamine, and I think in a sense we are all addicted for those dopamine shots, some more than other, but yeah, how would you weapon against these, and especially if we are entering more immersive worlds? And do you maybe have a message you would like to close off with regards to the metaverse and what's waiting for us in the future?
Sam, you got cut there for like one part of your question didn't came through to me.
Oh,
So
no problem, no problem. Let me
yeah,
reformulate it again. So, what was my question? My question.
you started at
Yes, my
dopamine.
question was about the dopamine. I think, in a sense, we are all kind of addicted, some more than the other, for those quick dopamine shots. And my question is, yeah, what would your advice be to weapon yourself against those addictions, especially as we are entering an even more and more immersive world? And do you maybe have some advice or a message that you would like to close off with regards to the metaverse and the future that we are about to enter?
Oh well, dopamine and the Web3 future is all going to be. It's our future. We can screw it up or we can create it. So what we do on our end is we're not fighting against anybody else. We're just seeing that we can build the best thing we can come up with, and something which is really balanced on the ethical side and on the dopamine usage side. It'll be out there. It'll be out there for people to experience. Because we have a digital character, we can easily do education on all that as well. There's a whole, well, I think the overuse of dopamine triggers is coming at an end anyway. There's quite a big movement swelling, which we are a part of, that really says, hey, like, this has to be looked at. It's going to be looked at from a government point of view as well. And especially, I think that we all got pulled into this, me as well, into Facebook, into Instagram, and the people at Instagram and Facebook, they didn't know what they were building, especially not in the beginning. It's the same like with the tobacco industry. In the beginning, they didn't know that tobacco would lead to cancer. So you cannot blame them for not knowing, but once they did know, if they then continue, that could be held against them, which is the same for social media. So there's already a big wave coming. I would say there's going to be a lot of education out there. There's going to be a lot of new systems that try to do education and try to explain to you what's different on these new systems in a very clear way. Be open to them, hop into them and see how it changes your life.